Good evening, good afternoon, folks. This is your man, aka Silky Johnson, player hater of the year. And you know what? I feel like a player hater. Sometimes, you know what? I know I often tell people, say, let them hate till you can't hate no more. But sometimes there's a time to be to be a congratulator, and it's time to be a hater. And something's going on right now. As you know, a while back we talked about this, how Arnold, he's raised the price when it comes to the prize money for men's open. And really, there's a lot of people who have different thoughts and opinions. I know a while back on our lives we posted where the eight-time Miss Olympia champion Linda Murray gave her thoughts. Well, everybody started jumping on Linda's back, particularly one gentleman by the name of Andrew Jack. And his name is really kind of, I can't, his real name I can't really see too well, so I'm gonna stick with Andrew Jack because it's easy to say. That's his IG handle. And another man who has talked about this is also a former IFB pro, who actually, from information I gather, he's no longer a former IFB pro. That is Lee Priest. And they both had some thoughts about Arnold and how he handles his money. And truthfully, it's not his money. And it's not really his money because he's only a figurehead, and a lot of people know that. But the fact is, because he's Arnold, and a lot of people don't know, that's the man. He's just the face of the show and of the company. But it's other people that run it, and they're the ones who put the money. Most promoters don't put up the money for the shows; they get the money from sponsorship, and generally the sponsor will tell you what division they want to put the money behind, and but if the promoters wanted to, they could have simply, hey, you know what? I got $250,000 extra here. These guys are already getting $500,000. It's not going to hurt if I take maybe like 100,000 some out of it, and spread the wealth a little bit. I saw a while back this young gentleman who competed also at Arnold a while back. I think he was doing, men's. A classic men's figure or men's physique or men's bikini, as I call it. And he talked about it on one of, I think it was on Generation Iron, if I can find it. And I would pull it up if I find it. They talked about how when he won Eddie Arnold, I think he won the overall place, can't remember which one. And he mentioned how his prize money was so much because he was coming from another country. And what happened was that he had to pay not just, the taxes here in the States, because hey, how these competitors work, especially from another country, you have to have a work visa when you compete. So you had to apply for a visa. That's why some competitors was a while back was hard for them to come here compete because either some issues for them getting a visa or they couldn't get a visa. Particularly one lady who's a 4-time Olympian but never been to Olympian, and I don't know if she's going to be able to make it this year if she don't get the visa issues solved. If you want to compete, especially in the States, you need a visa. That's what it is. You come over here and do shows. That's like you're working, so you need a work visa. And she lives in Brazil, and you think, hey, after doing this for a while and you got your at least 4 Olympia qualifications under your belt. Before then, you should all get that shit straightened out. But that's the thing is that he has to go back to another country and pay taxes out of his money. If I find it, I think it's somewhere on Generation Iron. But I'm going to pull up this thing with Lee Priest. You want to check it out? You can go to his website. It's Lee Priest official, and he's been in the sport for quite some time. He has been a multiple-time Olympic competitor. Won a handful of shows here and there during his career, but never the old title. I'm trying to think. Did he win the Arnolds? He might have. If my man Keith here, he'll let me know. Like I said, I don't follow guys like that. And we up here, and he's Lee Priest, and there he is. And below here, give me a second, folks. I want to get the full spread of the here. There you go. And Lee, as you know, in the past, his first wife, or it could have been, I don't know if his first wife or not, she was IFB pro bodybuilder. That was Kathy Lynn Francois. And they were married in around the 90s. I think they were married for 2 or 3 years, so she got divorced. But he didn't talk about this.
Back when I was competing, I was married to Kathy, a female bodybuilder. I saw what the women put into it. They trained just as hard, if not harder, than the men. And I respected that. And back then, I even said I'd give some of my prize money to the women also. But then I also asked some of the guys to stand with me. You think about it. You're at the Olympia, the Arnold, any big contest, tickets are sold. Say the Olympia, tickets are sold. People come from all over the world. Sponsors are there. Now think of the athletes meeting. You're all there together. Men unite with the women and say, if they don't get any more money, we're not walking out on stage either. Do you think the IFBB would cancel the show, refund everyone's money? No. I stood up, I got suspended. If you all stand together, united, you can make a change. It's like having a piece of string. You can snap it, put thousands of pieces of string together. You have an indestructible piece of rope that will never be broken. So everyone stand up, unite together, and be the change you want to be. But sadly, too many egos. That's where it all falls apart. So put your egos aside, unite. Collectively, you all have the power. So use that power. Yes, I know the IFBB, they put on shows. Can't put on shows without the athletes. Athletes can go to other organizations. So when are you going to realize the power is in all your hands? So come together, unite, and be that change, okay? Stop talking about it, and for once, do it.
Shout out to Mr. He really put a strong point of that the fact is it's about unity. But again, bodybuilders have certain personalities, and I think that it's all about, even though how much it's supposed to be a friendship, brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever, it's always going to be about the issue of everybody for himself. We just got a guest here, and this is my big bro. He is Ivy Pro. He's one of the banana hammocks.
What up?
Hey, what up? Congratulations. His little girl just graduated to junior high. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's been
Yes.
a long week.
Yeah, I know you're tired, Daddy. I know. If I do appreciate you coming, because you could take a rest, say skip it, and say, hey, fuck it. I do appreciate you coming on.
I can't
So
leave you hanging though.
I appreciate that. But again, as you know, as Lee said, it does take everybody to play their part. But you being in the league and competitive as long as you have been, you understand that sometimes a lot of bodybuilders, their ego's more important than their, just really helping out their fellow man or woman.
I wouldn't say it's ego. I would say it's fear of being blackballed. I've heard people say, it took me a minute to get my pro card because I was bitching about runner ups, and I never bitched about it because I knew if I bitched, it would just be me pushing myself backwards. So you know what to say, when to say it, and I think that's part of the fear of women coming on your show because they're scared that somebody's going to hear or they say the wrong things, and then it gets out there, and then they get blackballed. And that's the fear that the IFBB puts into athletes. And that is unfortunate that you can't speak your mind, and maybe Calvin Kaepernick, after he kneeled, he was done in the league, and some people feel a certain way, about certain things in the IFBB. So a lot of people, as much as they don't agree with what's going on, just don't speak up, and this has been going on for years because of the fear of who you piss off, and you get on stage and you're judged, you know, and I've went through this politically wise, where, I did nationals one year, and, uh, had a contract with a particular magazine, and Dave Palumbo was wasn't a part of it, but was a part of the whole thing that went down at nationals, and a guy who, like myself, who was standing in the middle and everybody thought won, ended up losing because of some political bullshit. So it's a tricky and sticky situation for us athletes of what we say and how we say it and what we do. I mean, you can't go to certain shows, you can't do certain things. And I think it's bullshit to a certain standpoint. I will say that because, we all have to make a living. We all have to make an earning. It was a guy, a couple of years ago, I think last year, was at a show and he had qualified for Olympia, and they took his qualification away because he was at a show that wasn't an NPC IFBB show, and so I think it's more a fear of athletes, putting their idea or philosophy. Lee Priest, he's retired. He can say whatever the fuck he wants, and nor does he give a fuck. And I respect him for that, And there's people who can say certain things and see people who can't say certain things. And it's just the nature of our business, And it's unfortunate that that the IFBB and the NPC doesn't collaborate with athletes to make it more powerful, more stronger than it should be, And so that's what makes it individualized. It's because of that, And so every man for himself. And unfortunately, it's that way. But you really can't do nothing about it.
Yeah, that's the sad part about it. I think it's like anything. I understand again. No, I'm not saying. I'm gonna say understand. I get their point in their meeting because they have to value their livelihood and how they want out of life, and then you want to shape the standard or the norm of the sport, But again, here, if you're not going to say something about it or speak up for it, especially the women make up. My guess, mostly now you're going to have fit model coming in
I don't
next
understand. I
year.
was at a show this weekend. I don't understand that shit whatsoever.
I know, but you're gonna increase the number of women because I think at one point I think somebody said it's at least about 7%, but then you're gonna increase another maybe 10, 20 more, maybe just about. And if they don't, like I said again, provide the help, assistance, or some kind of really, I'm not saying the women should get equal, but enough where okay, you do a show and you see a guy, he gets like maybe like I think if you saw the Pittsburgh Pro show, Derek Lumford walked away with $200,000, and okay, and all right, but then some of the women, especially I think Richard Daniels and some of the women in the
well, but then what did he walk with the Arnold? So he's making a good living.
yeah,
So Arnold was $500,000 this year, wasn't it?
$500,000. It's going to go up to
So
two
he's already made $700,000 in 2 shows, and still got the Olympia to come up on, and now Arnold has, like the top of the conversation, Arnold's dropping 700. And here's the thing: this is what Arnold's doing, and I get it from the standpoint of he's trying to make his show the number one show. So what's going to have to happen? Let's be honest. What's going to have to happen? The Olympia is going to have to raise their prize money up because he just dropped 750,000, then another 250,000 in the UK 2 or 3 weeks later at that show because that was a great turnout. Because Tyler Mannion was like best show ever, great turnout, this that and other. So he's making, in essence, Jake Woods and the Olympia say, let's who got the biggest dick. Let's just be honest. Who got the biggest dick? Who got the deepest pockets? To make to have the biggest show. So at the end of the day, that's why you remember you used to see the guy who won the Arnold, the guy who, excuse me, was Mr. Olympia, never did the Arnold. He would just stay, on course to do the Olympia. Now it doesn't make sense to sit idle, especially when you're on a hot streak like Derek, and sit there and say, hey, I can make $500,000 here. Now Pittsburgh, $200,000 here. Now the Arnold next year. Now that I still got the Olympia coming up, then he's going to be top 3 at the Olympia. So there's another 250K there, or if not more there. You've earned grossed over $1 million in 1 year. Competing in 3 shows. So of course these guys are going to do it. Is it fair to the women? So let's just put it this way. I was at Jack Chatone's Kansas City Natural show. And I sat in the audience. And you remember, guys, I've made this point before. It's not like women's bikini, wellness, classic physique, men's physique is more popular than men's bodybuilding. But what I seen from sitting in the audience and attendance was there were more people there to see that than to see anything else. And when that component of the show was over, and this is amateur, mind you, when that component of the show was over, a lot of people were like, there was free seating everywhere. I've told people before when I did Chicago Pro, we got on stage like midnight. Yeah, and they've said this at the Olympia. Why, if bodybuilding is the most important and the most important part of the component, do they go on last? Because it messes up the timing, and there's so much more goes into men's bodybuilding than all the other classes. Just like women's body and men's bodybuilding. But here's what I realized: it's not about. It's about asses in the seat. What the NPC and the IFBB have understood is simply this: with the classes like bikini, with the classes like now fit bikini, with the classes like classic physique, with the classes like physique, with the classes like wellness, etc., is they can put more butts in the seats because it's, in my opinion, it's more popular and it's a bigger draw for family friends to come out at the amateur level anyway that I see. And there's tons of people supporting it as far as family, friends, etc. Now, it's a numbers game. Remember, this is a numbers game that we're talking about. It's a numbers game. Who can put the most butts in seats? And clearly it's amateurs. That's why you see all these NPC pro-ams now. But again, those other categories that I've seen, and I was looking at Tina, I was like, man, look how clear out this place got after bikini was over, wellness was over. I think classic physique was last. They had bodybuilding, etc. How much it cleared out, because all these people just got up and left because they were there to see these other classes. So when we say that, are we saying at the amateur level, at the pro level? I think it's the same thing. I think it's foolish for Arnold and any promoter not to have all these classes because you don't know, they put butts in the seats, But again, at the end of the day, they don't give a shit because when Arnold's doing the Arnold Classic, he also actually has the Arnold Amateur, just like the Olympia Amateur. And if you did the poll on the number of women versus men who compete in those shows at the amateur level, there's more women than men, hands down. And the categories that we talking about: bikini, figure, wellness. Now, I don't know about women's fitness and women's physique, and probably women's bodybuilding is probably the last of those categories as far as women's concerned. But understanding that those people are there to see, they're there to see those amateurs and those women amateurs compete in these classes. And again, it's more obtainable and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, I don't think the NPC or the IFBB are looking at it that way. They're looking at how much money can they make and generate while creating more classes and more obtainable goals for people to compete in, and then they make more money. But that's just my opinion from what I've seen, observed over the years.
Yeah. But here's the one thing: the new fit model division, he does no crossovers. How long is that?
And that's fine, because I watched a little bit of it, and I'm like, I can't do this shit anymore. I can't watch it anymore. I can watch bikini, and again, it's crazy when you're looking at this stuff. Like, I watched a guy, and I watched a guy win classic physique, and I watched a guy win win classic physique, win novice classic physique, win classic physique in his class to win the overall, win novice bodybuilding, and win the overall in open bodybuilding. I go, again, it's just like a woman being able to do figure and cross over the women's physique at like North Americans and may not do well in figure, but turn pro in women's physique. It's like there has to be a distinct line or something that tells you can't do both. But they're giving them the opportunity to do both. And I get it, to figure it out. But to be able to win two classes which has two different, like I learned this week in classic physique, they do a front double bicep, side chest. They don't do a side tricep. They do a back double bicep. They don't do a back lat spread. But in bodybuilding, you do all the poses. But this kid, he would think the kid was, my buddy was his trainer. I think he was like 22, 23, won both classes. How is that possible? Well, I watched girls do it in bikini and figure, or in figure. How is that possible? There has to be rules that state specific things. So you're good at women's figure, you win that. The girl who does bikini or women's physique, I don't see how you give two titles to, because you can't do it as a pro. So I don't see how you can That's like Chris Bumstead said. That's like Chris Bumstead saying, "I'm going to do classic physique and open bodybuilding." He's not going, and he tried it, right? After he retired, he went to Romania and tried it, and he came in second. Because you can't do it at the pro level. So why should you be able to do it at the amateur level? Because again, like you said, it's a money thing. But the reason why they're doing that with bikini and fit, or the fit model and bikini, because there's so many girls already. Can you imagine if these girls were able to cross over, how long shows would be? They would take forever.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I feel that they created that specific rule, was because if and it makes sense, because if you can't, they don't want muscle definition. They want certain things, and some of the bikini girls have muscle definition and all this stuff, so they would have to soften up to do that. So that's why they're like, okay, this is the first time that the IFBB and the NPC have put their foot down and made it so that there's a distinct rule between the two. So if you're going to do that for fit model and bikini, why can't you do it for the other classes like figure and women's physique, classic physique and men's bodybuilding? Why can't you do the same thing? But they're not. It's crazy.
Yeah. Here's my man here, Jeremy Remo, aka the Art of Female Muscle, the Femme Physique fan. We talked about this about a couple weeks ago, Jeremy. How there was there was a young lady that Jeremy told us about, how she won. She did like how many class? How many divisions?
Four divisions. She did she did what did she do? She did wellness, figure, physique, and bodybuilding, and won all four.
How is that possible?
How is that possible? That's exactly what I said. And get this, she has a bodybuilder physique. How does someone with a bodybuilder physique win wellness?
Yeah.
How does someone win figure with the same physique? It's like you say, it's getting ridiculous. But I mean, like you said, also it's about money. You can't blame them, because as long as they have the ability to do it, they're going to do it. But it just becomes so ridiculous after a while. I get really depressed now about even talking about this stuff, because it's like, it's just going downhill so quickly. And now with the advent of this fit model division, it's just going to get even worse. And then that's what laughed about it when I found out they actually did it. He said, what the hell do you think the future of that division is going to be? They're going to do exactly what fit model, what they've done with every other one. They're going to let it get out of control because of bad judging, and then they're going to give it a warning. They're going to put out a memo saying, oh, everybody's getting too muscular, and they're going to keep right on doing what they're doing, and then they're going to have to come up with another one. Another division after that.
There's no accountability when it comes to judging. I mean, there's just not.
Right. I mean, it's always the women's fault. It's never, ever the judge's fault.
Here, I got my man Damon J coming through. He says, looks like I came just in time. I appreciate that, brother. Also, Damon said this. He says, Arnold Schwarzenegger is not giving the women's bodybuilding or women's physique division respect for ever since he had gotten out of shape himself with his bloated dad bod. Now, that is what happened when you spend that much time in Hollywood. Remember, you can't forget, he was the governor of California, and you remember during the time, as you know, there's a causal. When you become like a governor or president, you have to give up your business, and he had to give up, even though he still went to the Arnold and was there, take pictures. You get like a 30 seconds, and that's $500, I think it is. But he's just a figurehead.
Well, I mean, he took his pictures down at Gold's Gym when he became governor. Disassociated himself from the sport. I'm like, bro, you're already pumping iron, smoking weed, so you're already exposed. So who gives a shit, you know? But then to walk away from something and that just tells you how he is as a person. You walk away from something that made you who you are, you know. And I just told somebody this the other day. Well, actually at the show, I said, how do you call yourself a sports festival when you start to eliminate certain classes in the show, where that's like saying Jack Tatone has his natural show or his regular show. hey, he had pro bikini, natural pro bikini, but then everything else is amateur, and I get it. Like Chad Nichols has done the Muscle Mayhem, where he had open men's bodybuilding, but everything is amateur. But that's like saying going to an amateur show and sitting there saying, well, we're gonna do bikini, fit model, men's bodybuilding, but leave certain classes out. That never happens. That doesn't happen. So it's like, how are they? If I'm Jim and I'm Tyler and I'm Steve and I have the power that says, here's the thing. If Olympia has every single class too that competes, you have to have the same thing or you just don't have a show because they're the ones who sanction it anyway. But they don't do that. And I don't understand why they don't do that. If you're going to have the second biggest show in the world to Olympia and you're giving out all this prize money to these guys now, I would say that the stipulations will be then you have every class like we have every class, or you just don't do the show. But they're not doing that because I don't know why, but that lies the problem with me. And it's like you can't call yourself the Olympics, and now they're bringing softball back, flag football back to Olympics. They're bringing things back that they took out of the Olympics because they understand people want to see the shit. So now it's back to being the Olympics of the olden days, which it should be. So if you're a sports festival, why isn't it the same? Why aren't you replicating what Olympia does? Because Olympia is the biggest show in the world, they say. Why aren't you doing that? That's my question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somehow the Arnold Sports Festival is able to come up with places and money for the medieval fighting championship, where you have guys dressed up in armor hitting each other with swords.
Yeah.
You're able to come up with that. You're able to come up with pole dancing.
Yeah.
You're able to come up with slap fighting. But then you can't bring back women's bodybuilding, women's physique, or figure. I mean, it's just the arguments don't fall. And then also to what you were saying, George, that Arnold is no longer involved. Why was he the one who made the announcement? Why was the one that he was saying I'm going to bring the prize money back? It's like, okay, if you're not involved, why are you making the announcement? Why isn't your successor doing it?
Well,
whoever that is.
Well, we all know he's just the face of it because you know what? His
but
money's
that's my point.
Yeah, but the money's not as deep because you remember a while back he got divorced and Maria took half of everything. Whatever he's getting, he's like any promoter is being sponsored. Or also you have Jim Littlemore's family. He remember that was his partner for a long time. He passed away about 3 or 4 years ago, and now it's really because again he's the face. And he has to be out in front. You put the front man out because other people gonna pay attention to. But again, it's not really so much his money; it's from somebody else who's giving the money. We got here a comment from Raheem Hamilton. He's always a shit starter. He says, "Is Jake a rich man? If so, why all the focus on Arnold? It's not so much the focus on Arnold, but because here with Jake, he's at least doing something. He's doing something for the female divisions. He has a show like the Rising Phoenix Arizona Pro, where the women are. That is one of the true standalone women's shows. There are no banana hammocks, no board shorts. They don't share the stage with even the amateurs. It's all women. And my man, he's been there a few times.
And that's this with Arnold. I don't know, like Jeremy said, I'm really not understanding what's going on and who's the money behind the machine of the Arnold. So that's that's the $1 million question. Who's the money behind this? You go from $500,000 last year to $750,000, so you went up $250K, and then you put another $250K to the Arnold, the Arnold England show, European Arnold. That's crazy. So again, who's putting the money behind the show?
Yeah, it has to be somebody. You don't have the money like that. Here we go. We got the man here, Wanda. You get it. I'm hearing my voice back. Yes.
Oh, sorry, my Bluetooth to my gym just turned on for some freaking reason.
All right. You get it straight out. So let me.
So
Okay.
let me. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
All right.
Hi.
Mute you for a bit, Keith. All right. We have here a comment from a man, KL the Wanderer. He says, shout out to Fit Model and Bikini. He says, hey, what's going on? Not much. Also, he says, pole dancing would definitely be interesting to see now. Well, they've been doing it for the last, I think, 10 years or more, ever since they added to the Arnold. So it's not nothing new. And also, he says, don't expect Arnold to do something unless it's going to be a movie punching bad guys.
Well, if you listen to his video, Arnold, when he's making this announcement, he keeps saying, I'm raising the prize money. I'm getting this money in. He's not saying the Arnold. He says, I'm doing it.
Arnold is running the Arnold now. And Arnold
Right.
came out and says, I don't know, it was a few years back where he said he wants 6 different Arnold sports festivals on 6 different continents. You know, so that's his goal. And the one in England was a smash hit last year. So what he's doing to bodybuilders, and shit, I wish I was back in my prime. What he's doing to these bodybuilders is trying to lure them out to sit here and says, look, you can make over $1 million. And that's what he said. You can make over $1 million in prize money in less than a year if you come out and do these shows. So what these guys are saying, like Derek, I'm sure Derek, after winning that 500,000, he was like, I'm good. But then Pittsburgh Pro says, hey, we're bringing up, what was it, 200,000 or whatever the case may be. Why wouldn't you? If you're a man, if you're still in shape, and, you know, and that was a tough competition between him and Nick, you know, you're going to go out, you know, besides Samson, because he's the champion, going to go out and be like, why not? I can make, you know, so Derek in the last 2 shows has made over $700,000. You know, you'd be a dumbass to not to do it if you're in shape and you're one of the top 5 guys. Why wouldn't you? Besides Samson, who's trying to defend his title, you know, and hopefully we see that prize money go up, because if not, you're going to see a lot more guys jumping into Arnold than giving a shit about the Olympia at the end of the day, because they can make more money.
Yeah. So I mean, Jake has to knock up the prize money for the Olympia, even though it's the more. Yeah, he's going to have to put it up to, if Arnold's going to make it 750, Jake has to make at least almost $1 million to compete with the Arnold Classic. And if not, then he's going to have low numbers, even though, hey, the Olympia is a more prestigious show. It's been around. So that's, I think, one reason why I think he's trying to pull back with the Rising Phoenix. I just changed everything with that, because he's not focused on this sport. He has to compete with Arnold, because, you know, Arnold, he's been part of the sport for years. He's really the guy that people look up to. But as a member, I was watching. It was a video. If you hadn't seen this one, I think they played the last time we had. You know, it was Linda Murray. She was talking about how she felt about the situation, and she also called out Arnold, because, you know, is the 8-time, you know, Miss Olympia champion, and she had an issue with it. And I understand, because even though she does have her own shows, she still has to go by, you know, what's going on as a promoter. She wishes she can do more, but she's doing a little more. I wish she can do maybe add more shows to a lineup in the future. But she did have something to say to address to Arnold. If y'all have not seen this video, I will play it for you. Here, shout out to Linda Murray.
You guys know what I'm thinking. Ladies, you know what I'm thinking. Okay. So this message is in regards to the announcement that Arnold Schwarzenegger just made about 26, that he will increase the prize money for the open men bodybuilders at the Arnold to $750,000 for first place. Well, I love numbers too, and I want to share this information. At your show in 25, there were 18 women, 3 divisions, and 18 women received together, they split $108,000. You gave to your third place open men bodybuilder. I believe it was Andrew Jack. He won about 100 grand. So one man made $100,000 all by himself, and your 18 women shared $108,000. Need I say more?
Well, Andrew Jack posted something. Yeah, Andrew Jack posted something.
I didn't understand it. Now I completely understand it. Wow.
Yeah. And Andrew Jack posted this. It's on his social media. It says, me, IG 850K, 18 of them is 3 million plus. Common sense, me versus them is 6 is 1 ratio. He says to Miss Olympia, you can even you contracted yourself with this simple maths. And here he posted this. He says, your payment is processed. It may take until the estimated date below. So this is his transaction. Now he payment was $70,000. Federal tax withholding is $21,000, and then he receives almost $50,000. But still, Andrew, you still get more than most women do at these shows. And then what was Olympia last year? Because I know he competed Olympia last year. Anybody?
What'd you say?
What was Andrew Jack placed in the Olympia last year?
Samson won it. Derek, he was 3rd or 4th.
I think Derek was 2nd, and that means that Andrew had to be like
he
had
to be. No, he was 4th or 5th. I can't because it was Samson, it was Hade Koopa. I know Derek was in there, Andrew, and then the kid from Germany or something. So he was top 5. I know that. I don't know what placing he was, but again, now it all makes sense. And he kind of got butthurt from what I seen because he was like, keep my name out of your mouth, this and another. All she was saying, Andrew and everybody else out there, was that the guy who placed her, and that could have been anybody. I mean, so it could have really been anybody. She wasn't personalizing. She was just like the guy who placed 3rd made 100 racks. And between the ladies, at 18 ladies, they got to split 108 racks. So she wasn't calling him out. She was just saying the comparison to what he made, which, it's like, here's the thing that people understand. When I played in the league, and that's why people look at these numbers and all this other shit. All those big numbers of 290, I think 30 just got 281 million, 181 million up front. Do you understand that Uncle Sam, when I played in the league, got 36% before I seen a dime? That's not less the whatever percent I was paying my agent. I think 10% I was paying my agent, et cetera, et cetera. So all that shit I gotta take that hit before I even see a dime. And then every state I play in for, and that's signing bonus money and whatever I sign to, every state I play in, they tax you on that state you play in. So it's not like, and then once the season over, that money stops. So your payroll money stops. Season over, you start getting paid. And Travis Kelce made a great statement. He's like, shit, I burned through that money my rookie season so fast and then realized that it was going to run out so fast with taxes and everything else. That's what people understand. So I get his point when he says after taxes and this and that and the other and expenses that is not even close to remotely what that number says. And I think that's what they're trying to do and the promoters are trying to do and the sport is trying to do is trying to raise the prize money because they understand, we all know we pay taxes, fuck, it's a bitch. But when you're up in the upper tax bracket and not unless you're showing a loss like, Jake Woods or some of those other people, taxes are a bitch. Literally I pay 36 or 37% before I see a dime to Uncle Sam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
I understand. Because when I was working, you got to count also taxes, medical, stuff like that. Like I do contact fighters. Fighters, when they fight in a fight, they most of them don't even have full-time jobs where their pay money is not that much because you have to pay your coach, your training partners, everybody that's involved with it. And then after you pay the taxes, you might get a good $20,000 to $15,000 out of the check. That's why one thing is, UFC, they have a thing like fight bonus of the night. That's $50,000. And that could change some people's lives, especially as a fighter. We got here comment from man K. Ellie says, if he's not allowing FBB to be in his shows, then what makes you think he's going to allow them to in the shows and raise the money for them? I'm not thinking he's going to do it. I'm not.
No.
But you know what? It should like be the opportunity for the ladies because hey, a lot of them would love to do the Arnold. Back you remember
Iris won it 6 years.
Yeah, she won Mr. National 6 years in a row. Actually 7. And that was the one thing they said because they didn't like Iris. But again, she's if her prize money at the Olympia was at least $50,000 to $100,000, she wouldn't do the Miss International. She said, "Hey,"
and I think she was making what 35. I think they were making 35 when she was competing. I know it wasn't 50 because they just raised it to 50. Yeah. And Jake made that announcement at the World Championships because I was there in person for that and said women's bodybuilding, women's bikini, that it was going to be straight up across the board. So it wasn't going to be any for the women. It was going to be any discrepancy on one class is prioritized over another. They're all the prize money across the board, which again is still shit compared to the men. Because I think the guy who comes in 10th place makes 50 or something like that.
Yeah, that's not much.
So, I get it. And again, we all understand that Linda and Arnold didn't get along, or towards the end didn't get along, or see eye to eye because she called him out in a lot of shit. Especially when she got some kind of award at his show one year, and Arnold said some funny shit. And I can't remember. I would have to go back and look, but Linda is a very well-spoken, speak her mind type of person. And rightfully she should be. When you're 8-time Miss Olympia, you should be able to say whatever the hell you want, and stand up for your girls. And that's what she's doing, And like Lee Priest said it best in that video you played, George. He's like, if you stand up unified together as a whole, men and women, where would the IFBB and the NPC be? They wouldn't be anywhere because without us, there is no shows. Yeah. So at the end of the day, but again, it's individualized sport, so everybody's looking out for themselves, and and that lies the problem, instead of being unified, because it's not a team sport, it's an individual sport, so everybody's looking out for their best interests. So they almost need to have like we do in football, like a rookie, like a symposium for bodybuilders to get together, whether it's via Zoom or via in person, and be like, and create a board. And I mean, like I remember when I played in the Arena Football League for a few years, we didn't have a union. Then we got a union, and the fucking owners were in an uproar because now we're protected. Now you can't fuck us over. Now we have insurance. Now our money went up and all because they seen what the Arena Football League and the NFL as well. They seen what they're doing. So salary cap money had to go, or our money had to go up for the athletes, because without the football players, not the coaches, without the football players, without the athletes, you got shit. And so they understood, like, that's why these TV deals are such big deals for the NFL, the NBA, the WNBA, and all these other stuff. And shit, the NBA carries the WNBA. So there's a whole lot of logistics that go into this. But again, these player unions that we have in WNBA, NBA, NHL, MLB, and all these other things make these athletes stand together. And that's what the NPC, or that, I wouldn't even say NPC because that's amateur. That's what the IFBB doesn't have, is a union for these athletes, for us athletes, because I'm a pro too, for us athletes to be united as one and having somebody representing us as a whole. If they ever did that, it would be a completely different ball game for this sport. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's shit.
Yeah, who got a comment from Raheem says, it's known fact that Arnold took out WPD divisions when the focus should be on Jake, since he supports all the women divisions, let Arnold in his own lane. That's fine with that. We're fine with that. But the fact is, some people are not fine with it. They do have an issue with it.
And here's the problem. Jake Wood is at his shows. So clearly he's supporting them. So if you're at his shows, because you see pictures with Jake and these guys at Arnold shows, he's the one that should be asking the question, like, okay, if you're going to have the second biggest show to me, as it stands, as we know, then why aren't you having the same classes as my show across the board? That's the question. Mm-hmm. And Jake should be the one, or Jim Mannion should be the one, or Tyler Mannion should be the one that should be able to look at the Arnold and says, if you want this show to be what it is, this is what you need to do. Because clearly you have enough money for men's bodybuilding to take place. So if you can generate that kind of revenue for men, and I think that's what Linda Murray was saying, if you can create that kind of revenue for men's bodybuilding alone in the last 2 years, you're saying, because you're saying from last year was 500,000 or this year was 500,000. Next year is going to be 750,000. You raised it up $250,000 in 1 year. Where's that money coming from? And why can't you bring other sports into, bring the other classes back? And it doesn't have to be the same prize money, but it has to be something. But you're not doing nothing, because I don't think that, I think, no offense at all, that Arnold is a fucking male chauvinist pig, and that he doesn't give a shit about women in general. Pole dancing and bikini is still alive there because he's a male chauvinist fucking asshole. Let's keep it real. And so, it's that's just what it is.
Yeah. Here's complicated. Said, yeah, I got to see the pole dancing then if it been there for 10 years. Well, you have to go to the expo. It's not going to be part of the main show. You have to go to expo and see it. Also, he says, why should she be surprised to comment? I don't understand. Well, the thing is, today you get used to something. You just, it's just sometimes you just get frustrated with it, but you got to say something. If you have something, you got to say with your chest. You feel like it's really bothering you. Also, he says, Linda Murray, I got love for her, you darling, so what? So, and also this is from KL says, he's not going to give them anything, Raheem. She knows that too. And Raheem says, the KL the Wonder, she's expecting Arnold to give the women's division more money, and that's it. But we all know he's not going to do that. We got one more from Raheem. He says, Linda just needs to raise the prize money for women's bodybuilding in her show, and that's it. Thing is that Linda, even though she has a show like the Atlanta Pro, remember a while back she had two shows at one point. She had Atlanta, she had Norfolk. And she had Norfolk and she had Savannah. But then, things were changing. She got divorced. My guess the cost, she had to get rid of Savannah and Norfolk. But the thing is,
Linda got divorced.
Yeah, I think didn't she get divorced? I know she got divorced.
I don't know.
I think she, because you don't see her husband around her much anymore. And I think she mentioned it. You can check it on IG. I think she got divorced. But the thing is, she doesn't have the backings and the deep pockets like Arnold, and the connection like Arnold. Arnold, even though he has not put out a big motion picture where made him a lot of money maybe in almost a little over 10 years, he still has clout. He still has a name. He still has a reputation. Even though he lost some of his money to his ex-wife because she knew what he was doing. But then when once it came out about it, then she couldn't say, what, I got to do something about it. So that's why she divorced him. And now she's living high at the hog.
Well, and you got to understand that Linda's backing was Wings of Strength, and it still is Wings of Strength. So Jake Wood backs her, and like I said, I remember Tina competing in that Norfolk show, and it was an awesome show. It was at an opera theater or something. It was amazing. The venue was amazing. The girls looked great. It was an awesome show. And Atlanta was a pretty good show too, and I know she still has that show. But all her backing is Wings of Strength. Everything that she does is through Jake Woods. So again, but like you said, like we're in this topic of conversation, what we're saying is that Jake Woods, is now becoming spread thin. You're supporting Alina in Romania, you're supporting Linda in the States, you got the Olympia, so again, the only way this comes to fruition as far as the money going up is that you find new sponsors. So again, it's hard for, I remember hearing a conversation about, Chad Nichols and Kim Krzyzewski being mad at Jake because he didn't support their Pink Fest, which was breast cancer. But, from what I understood, the story was that Jake said, you don't even have women's bodybuilding. So why would I support your show when you don't even have women's bodybuilding? You know what I'm saying? It's like, you don't have women's bodybuilding, but yet you want me to help sponsor your show? That makes no sense whatsoever. That's why him and Jack's relationship in Omaha, because Wings stopped supporting the Jack Tatone in the Omaha Pro. So guess what? Left women's bodybuilding. So these promoters are looking for guys like Jake, who's now deep in it. And remember, when Jake first came into this, he wasn't as deep. He didn't have the Olympia. He just had the World Championships. Then once he bought the Olympia, things start getting even more chaotic for him, I imagine. And so he started having to cut off the sponsorships and this all the stuff we were talking about earlier, George, where, I don't know how deep Jake's pockets are, but at the end of the day, you can only do so much as a person. And I don't know sponsorship wise what it costs to put up a banner or whatever they charge, whatever the case may be. But, I know in the magazine industry when it was around, the magazines made their money off the sponsors. The guys who were on the covers, I thought were just because they were the best. But no, it was because the sponsors and the supplement companies were paying for their athletes to be on the cover of magazines. And so I don't know if that's if that is indeed the case of what's going on with Jake and Linda, because Linda, again, she's wings of strength all the way, ride or die to the end, but again, at the end of the day, I wonder the stipulations of what she's doing is stipulations of what Jake is putting on, saying, this is your budget, this is what I got for you to do this, and that's that. But again, I'm speculating, we just don't know.
Yeah. Here we go.
The fans have got to start paying for shit. The fans, if they really are out there, they got to start ponying up the cash. They got to start paying for shit. They got to stop streaming shit for live. They got to stop buying, like Mela Ash pointed out on Amazon's podcast. She said, if you're paying for this, but then you're streaming it free for everybody to see, you're helping to kill our division.
Well, yeah.
She flat out said that. But you got people who are doing it, who are claiming to support this, yet they'll shell out no money for it at all.
Yeah, and
they won't buy the webcasts. They won't do any of this shit. And I'm like, guys, if you support it, pay for it. Back it up. But then the other thing that I've been wondering as of late is something that was brought to my attention like about 3-4 years ago, is that how many of these 3 million fans that Linda is talking about are actually fans of the competition? Because the question you have to ask yourself is, okay, they're a fan of female muscle. What are they a fan of? Are they a fan of competitions, or are they a fan of Schmodem? Are they fans of OnlyFans?
Yeah.
Or such like that? Is that what they're really interested in? Because I met a guy, I saw him, he was writing out names on a pad, and it was names like Asha Hadley, Marshy Martin, Nikki Chartrand, Janine Lankowski, and I was like, okay, well, this is a female bodybuilding fan. Like I said, how long have you been a fan of female bodybuilding? And he was totally surprised when I asked him that, because have you heard of these people? I said, yeah. I said, so who do you think is going to win the Olympia? And he looked at me and said, what's that? He had no idea what I was talking about. So it was pretty clear as to what he was a fan of. And that little encounter caused me to rethink quite a number of things. It's like, okay, that means one of two things. A, I've been totally wrong this entire time, and the majority of fans really don't give a shit about the competitions. They just want to jack off to women online. Or you've got guys they are closet fans of it, which is what I've been saying for years now, and they need to get out of the closet and need to start paying money for this stuff and going to the competitions that they like. But that's why I've been wondering as a way to say, what are the majority of fans of female muscle really interested in? Or do they really give a shit about the competitions, or do they just want to jack off?
Yeah.
I think that's a question that's got to be asked.
Here we got from man, shout to man KL. He says this. He says, I have no idea. Ask George or he's talking to. He says, KL wondered what was the point for her saying what she said on social media, and he answered. He says, I have no idea. Ask George or Keith or Jeremy. Like I said again, she's an advocate for division. That's the division that got her attention, that got her recognition. That she's 8-time Miss Olympia. So you wouldn't just want to sit by and see your division was dying and not have a fighting chance. We have here from he says KL the Wonder. They have Jake, and if remember correctly, Jake is a rich man who supports women's bodybuilding. So they should go to Jake and asked to raise the prize money, which I hope he's doing. I hope he is doing, because now he cut the prize money down for the Rising Phoenix. Not a lot of the big names are going to be doing that show anymore, because think about it. So like, if the prize money is $25,000,
yeah, and you got to pay for it yourself. So you can't just it's not them paying for makeup, and you got to pay for that shit yourself. So
yeah. But now it's an open show, because it used to be
and,
they put out the list of who's going to compete like around about March, but there's no list this year. And the Arizona Pro is already open already for the other divisions, but now it's open for women's bodybuilding. They might do this also because if the Rising Phoenix they do masters, they might add masters to the Rising Phoenix like they do with Arizona, because that's the division where that's the only division in the pros where you can compete both in open and you can do masters in physique and masters in women's bodybuilding. I know a couple ladies who've done that. Here we got here. This is from Raheem. He says, in the last 4 years, has women's bodybuilding show sold out or made a profit? Well, generally, it's not that many of them that stand alone, because most women's bodybuilding shows are attached with other divisions. You might have men's open, you might have men's classic, you might have 212, you might have men's physique. Other than maybe the Rising Phoenix, which is the only standalone women's show. You have Triple O Dynasty, but that's not so much standalone, because there's still a pro-am where you have guys competing there too. Like he said, the people come for support their friends, and then after a while they might fade out. Then you have something like the Vancouver, like Chelsea, when she won it, she said her prize money was like maybe about $2,000, and that's all the way up in British Columbia. And and the guy Corey, even though this year it was a small lineup, I think we'll still have it next year. We got here.
Because what did she do? We know the prize money for when she won at the New York Pro?
No, I don't know. It should have been 5,000, but I'm not sure.
And here lies the answer to Jeremy's question, and I can testify to this because I was standing right there with Jake when this happened. The first year the Olympia was in Orlando. He was so fucking frustrated and pissed off that people were sharing and streaming. They were buying the pay-per-view and then streaming it, that he was losing money. And so he's losing money.
Right, that's exactly what happens, and that's why you shouldn't be doing it.
We were getting on the elevator at the Hyatt, and I was like, so, we were talking about Hadi and all this other stuff, and how, and I was telling him how, I said, when you're live streaming this, people get to see it and are really confused, and this is on part of the judges, that they're not understanding. Like when Tina, like we have it at our bar, and the people like, I just don't understand, because this girl looks much better than this girl, and this girl looks much better than this girl, but this girl's winning this, that, and other. And Jay kept sitting there saying, he goes, it was the first year of the live stream, and he was just pissed, because he goes, and this Nico who runs his live stream was like, there's nothing they can do about it. He's like, we got people who buy it and then stream it, and then we're losing money. So I was like, and I looked at him, I go, so why even stream it anymore? If you lose money, then why are you streaming? You want to see the show, come see it, or watch shit afterwards.
Well, like with Arnold, he don't even charge for the Arnold Classic. He shows it for free. But this question is, how can you show it for free? Because that's when you got to pay the whoever sets up the live stream, and you have to pay this and pay that. How are you doing this for free? Like I said,
because it's the Arnold. Because it's the Arnold. That's why you can come up. You can come up with an extra. You can come up with an extra $450,000 over 2 years to give to one guy.
Yeah.
I mean, a free live stream is nothing to you.
No.
So it's just, I mean, it's a question of how much money the guy's got and how much he's bringing in.
Jeremy is absolutely right. Yep.
Yeah. We have a comment from my man Raheem. He says, well, Keith, they should have let Dwayne Johnson and his ex-wife buy into it. Just imagine what could have been done.
Guess what? When it came out that that whole idea was trying to come to fruition, you know what everybody said? They said The Rock would ruin the IFBB by being the owner. What the fuck?
Right now he's ruining wrestling.
It's like he is box office. He's
of course, yeah.
He's created this football league that's on ESPN every week. The USFL, and they actually combined the two leagues now. So you have the United Football League and another football league who now combined as one, who play against each other. and he has this show, fitness, this show on TV, and he's doing all this other stuff. How can a guy like that ruin the sport? And the reason why I think that they love the idea that Jake bought it, because Jake doesn't, and no, it's not no offense to Jake, because I love Jake as a person, as an individual. He messaged me when I got injured and everything else, but Jake doesn't know the ins and outs of show business like The Rock does. And so The Rock is not going to let Jim and Tyler tell him something that he already knows and how the industry he's been in it for years, whether it's WWE or TV or movies and stuff like that, how it works, because he knows how it works better than them. But again, when it comes to the IFBB and the NPC, it's being held by one person who, in essence, grandfather his grandson in. I remember Tyler when he was this big, as a wrestler at Maryland, and would come to shows with his dad. And all of a sudden he is head judging, and all of a sudden now he's the vice president. And I'm not mad at him. It's like LeBron getting his son to the NBA. People fucking hated it. But when you got that kind of juice and that kind of clout, why not? That's what he did.
Nepotism.
Jim Mannion did it before LeBron did it. And everybody hated LeBron. He got going and getting into the draft and getting picked over other guys. But when you got that much juice and you got that much clout, and if I had that much clout for my son, I'd probably do the same thing. And my son's a phenomenal basketball player. If I was LeBron and my son was playing and I wanted to play with him, that was my dream. I'm going to pull all the strings out to do it. Jim Mannion did the same thing to his grandson. He knew his son didn't want anything. He likes taking pictures. So he knew the person that he was going to groom in was his grandson, and now Tyler runs the shit. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Tyler spent 4 years at Maryland wrestling, went from 4 years at Maryland wrestling to becoming the vice president and the head of the NPC and IFBB. As they say, grandfather then. And again, I'm not questioning his judgment of what he knows and doesn't know about the sport. I'm just saying, how does something like that happen when you got Billy, and you got Steve, and you got Sandy, and you got all these other judges that have been around this whole entire time, but yet now he's running it. Hey, I'm not mad at him. If I got that kind of juice, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to keep it in the family, but that's how it works. That's just how it works.
Yeah, the reason, and what they really meant to say was, as far as I'm concerned, is that The Rock would have ruined it for them.
Yeah.
Would have ruined it for the current owners.
Yeah.
He would not have ruined the IFBB and NPC. He would have given it more popularity, or he would have given it more attention that it's gotten in decades.
Bro, he got Under Armour.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
He got the movie company, everything.
I mean, he had that. Then there was Athleticon. Remember his own fitness expo?
Yeah.
That he and his wife were going to be putting on, and unfortunately, COVID is what the one and only thing that killed that was COVID.
Yep.
If that would have gone through, I mean, and I think the other reason why is because they don't want increased scrutiny. Because you increase the popularity of something, or you get the word out there, it falls under increased scrutiny, and I don't think they want that.
And remember, we talked about Lee Thompson trying to do this, but Lee Thompson ain't fucking The Rock at all. But what did Lee Priest just say in the video that George displaced? If you go to another federation and do something different, and athletes would jump on board if they knew that change was coming and it was coming in their favor, as great as the IFBB is, they would jump ship.
Sure they would. Sure they would. And if you back it up, if you back up your claim, if you back up what you say, they'd be hesitant at first because they'd want to see what would happen. They'd probably wait like a whole competitive season before they actually did something, like before there was this exodus like you're talking about. But if you stick with what you say, if you keep your promises, hell yeah, they'd jump. Well, absolutely they would.
And the funny thing is, when I remember the story when the USFL started last year or 2 years ago, and the wife was on the field and everybody didn't know who she was. The player's like, well, who are you? And this, that, and the other. And they were like, and she goes, I'm the other owner. And they were like, what the fuck? When you got Under Armour and all these people behind you, and you're filling up these stadiums now, and you got ESPN, the big Disney, ESPN is Disney. The biggest supporter in all of sports period. Are you fucking shitting me? I am jumping on board. And like Lee Priest said it best, and I never even heard that till George played it. As athletes, you have to be willing to open up your ears to make the change. And he would, and I kept just reading all the comments like, oh, he would have ruined the sport and blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. Ignorance lies with a lot of people. But I don't think from the history, it's like everything that man touched, that shit turned into sugar. Think about his history right now. Everything since he started at Miami and with the Canadian Football League, drove back from the Canadian Football League and started, what was it, 4 Acres? Is that his brand or whatever? Everything that man has touched, from his journey has turned into gold. So you're here and tell me a man like that hurts the sport? Now, here's the thing. I love Jake, but Jake ain't The Rock. Jake doesn't have the fortitude as far as the sport, because Jake played football too, because we used to talk football all the time. But Jake wasn't at that level, or, he had to hire people to give him guidance. That's why he hired Dan Solomon. That's why he hired, all the people that he has on this team, because he needed guidance if he was going to go big on this, to do it versus The Rock has a team. Kevin Hart has a team. There are certain people in the world who have teams that can make shit happen and don't need anybody but what they have to turn it around, and that lies the problem. So when people said that, I started laughing because I'm like, really? You're talking about an athlete, a guy who, was not a starter at Miami, who was grinding. Now he makes the most movies out of most money out of any actor in Hollywood. Are you shitting me? It's like,
and that's not including the millions that he made. We were still talking Dwayne, right?
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah. I mean, that's not including the sheer bankability that he made in the WWE.
Yeah.
I mean, in all those years, easily the guy is just dripping with charisma.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, and it's like you said, it's like everything has turned golden with this guy. So why would anybody think that if a person like that, with that kind of cash and that kind of charisma, would do anything wrong with anybody's stuff is beyond me.
Well, this goes back to why I interviewed a lady a while back. She had, because you remember his ex-wife was still competing for a good while. She turned pro a few years ago.
Yeah, I watched her compete at the Rising Phoenix one year.
Yeah, and one person that was there, I interviewed, she didn't like the fact, and then how she was there, and how I think everybody was agreeing themselves with her because of who she was at the time. She was long since divorced from The Rock, and then they still partners. And she loves bodybuilding. You know, that's what got it. We got a comment from a man. Raheem says George The Rock is not ruining wrestling. Dwayne sits on the board of directors of TKO. Triple H is the booker and a bad booker at that. I wouldn't say that. Triple H did pretty
What? Wait, how? Triple H, a fellow guy who's been in the business for how long?
Just
for how many decades? Doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to booking? Anyway,
that was a miss with that whole thing with the Travis. But that was the thing.
But you had Triple H has been at the Olympia many times. So
quite a few bodybuilders have gone there. We have here. This is from Raheem, says, why not just have a TV streaming deal with Tubi or Max, who need content on their streaming channel? They should do that
because they're backwards with technology. This has been the case.
Everything through wings of strength. That's why.
Right, and it's just, I've had this criticism of them for years. It's like, well, everybody else was getting on the streaming background. They were still doing. Do you remember this, Keith? Yeah. They were doing texted play-by-plays. Yeah. Texted play-by-plays on forum boards. Like, okay, they're writing out. Okay, this person is coming out. It's like, for fuck's sake, get on board with streaming. Yeah, and then you got
Muscular Development started that because I remember when I was an amateur, you had Flex and Sean Ray and Dave Palumbo sitting in the press row typing the play-by-play.
Right. And it's just mind-boggling that they just do not get on board when it comes to technology. And this whole thing with the live streaming and such, they've already come up with solutions for that.
Yeah.
As to how to get about doing it. I found out there's this company called Yonder, And that is what they do, is deal with cell phones at live shows.
Yep.
People like who was it? I'm trying to remember who was, but it's like many name comedians. Like, all you do is you have to put your cell phone in a bag that is only accessible and only unlockable via that company, via unlocking stations that they have outside the venue. They've already come up with ways to get around this, but they don't explore it, and they don't look for it, because all the people who are running this, they haven't been around with new technology. So it's like, that's been a problem, is that get on board with technology, people.
Just had a show just this weekend, the Ultima Classic. Shout out to Richard Daniels. She won the show.
That
Amazing
Miami?
physique. Yeah, I think she's from Miami, Tampa.
No, that show was in Miami, wasn't it?
No, it was in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Okay.
The promoter of that show doesn't do a live stream. Now, there were some pictures and clips and posts here and there. Somebody posted the videos or sitting in the audience taking videos here and there, but he doesn't do a live stream, just like Jack Tatone. They had at least almost 20 women at this show for women's physique. It was the largest lineup for this show.
It was a stacked lineup for WPD.
Yeah.
They did a really good job.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, you had Rachel Daniels, you had Marika Jones, you had Paula Ranta, Daphne Holmes, a couple of ladies I interviewed on this channel. It was a stacked lineup, but you didn't do. And I remember last year when they had Natalia Bostova. That was the first American show, and she and Heather Graham. Susan Graham. They were the top two. A lady who just interviewed Donna. She could be that show plenty of times. This thing is, it's not new technology streaming. It's been around for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Like pay-per-view. It's pay-per-view. It goes back. You can't just. You can get some kids from. You're not too far from Marquette College. You can get some kids who runs the AV club, and they can set up something. Like, I remember Jeremy Jeremiah's church. They do that.
Yeah.
You can do that stuff because people are not going to have the money or time to go fly all the way to Louisiana to go to a show, to pay for tickets, to pay for this, to pay for that. It's easy to sit at home and maybe pay $40, $60, and you can watch it. Now, one thing I think New York Pro did was they did an anti-streaming thing. And
They did. They had an announcement that said, if you do in fact do that, then you're subject to copyright infringement, and we're going to come after your ass.
Yeah.
Hey, and who does that? Who makes that announcement several times on Sunday?
The NFL. Yes.
If we catch your ass doing copying or doing anything, they come after your ass hard. Trust me.
Yeah. Here we got a comment from Raheem. He says, Keith, no one hates LeBron for putting his son in the NBA. LeBron's son sucks at basketball. Look at his plays in college. Well, that's the thing is, all people have to do issue because it's nepotism. He's pushing his son before any other players. There's some people that maybe not about him, but some people may not like it. If Dwayne was in charge of the Olympia, Miss Olympia would have contract deals with Under Armour and would have TV movie deals. I can probably believe it. Also says this: Dwayne would have brought the Olympia back to ESPN. He has a deal with ESPN and ABC, CBS on air with the UFC XFL games. And he says Jake needs to call Dwayne ASAP, and that's a possibility.
Isn't that what we've been talking about? Have you not been listening, knucklehead? And nobody hates LeBron. What I'm saying is, when you have that kind of juice and power, people are upset that his son got drafted where he got drafted, got a $4 million contract, now is playing in the G League because of his dad. So, again, when we're talking about Raheem, when we're talking about this, we're talking about Tyler Mannion and Jim Mannion and the position that he was able to get himself in because of his grandfather. Nobody hates LeBron. LeBron's an unbelievable businessman. But when your son is averaging 1 point a game in the NBA and they're talking about him over a guy who was the first round draft pick, that's the problem. And that's what people were pissed off about. Not me. I can give a shit less.
That was also the same way. That was the same way with Dwayne himself. I mean, Dwayne Johnson, because who was his grandfather? High Chief Peter Maivia.
Yep.
Who's a WWE legend in his own right. That right there was his entry, because he was only in the independents for like a minute. Yeah. And then the next thing you know, he's appearing with the likes of Triple H, who genuinely was Hunter Hearst Helmsley, the blue blood at this time. And then Dwayne joins Nation Domination, the guys like that. But I mean, yeah, if you got an in, why not explore?
Exactly.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah,
So
his comment from a man right here again. If not being a bodybuilder, we'll go the way of the dinosaur. That's a possibility. Also, he says, when I said Dwayne Johnson, Keith got real hype. Also, this is for Damon J. Says, Raheem Hampton Arnold owns the Arnold Classic, and since the topic of George video is referring to Arnold, I put my opinion forward discussion. I appreciate that. Also, we got here, Raheem says, the New York Pro is providing that women prove that women bodybuilders not making money, only 3 competitors. That is bad, and it's given Arnold more reasons not to bring women bodybuilding back in his shows. Here's one thing I'm going to talk about this, and I know ladies will tell me this. The big problem is these ladies don't have sponsorship. They're mostly paying out of their own pockets. We have a man whose wife is IFB Pro. She has to work. Not only work, but take care of kids, take care of a job. She has to be a boss. I know you were saying this, like sometimes some ladies has to pay off their credit card fees from the last season. That's why you only had 3 women. There's some women I know with Big Jane, she dropped out because she had to deal with injury.
Hey George, you think you could do me a favor? I would love for you to, or Jeremy, because you guys know a lot of these female bodybuilders. I would love to want to know, because we always talk about expenditures. Mm-hmm. And I know, like with my wife, I'll probably write it down, but I don't worry about money like that. But it'd be interesting from the standpoint of talking and saying, what do you pay for your trainer? What, if they have a trainer, what do you pay for supplements? What do you pay for food? What do you pay for travel? What do you pay for hair, makeup, suits, tanning, and all that stuff? And add that number up. And that's why a lot of these women are starting to say, and I say this all the time to my business partner, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
It makes sense. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. So I'm spending all this money. I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul for what? To go to Olympia, and possibly not place, and then I'm spending more money. And then you just had a person with the idea of saying, well, maybe we should have a prejudging before the prejudging. And so it breaks down from, if you're not in the top 15, I think Steve Weinberger was saying this on one of his deals. They have a prejudging before the prejudging. So I don't know how many athletes qualify for the Olympia in each category.
Didn't they have that back in the day already, though?
Yeah, but I
was going to say they had,
because the whole bringing it back. And so, like, say for instance, some people want to go to the Olympics just for the experience, but they have this prejudging now. From what Steve was saying on this cast on IG, was like, so you have so if you have 25 guys in bodybuilding, you have a prejudging where all the competitors have to do it in every category, and then you break it down to 15. Now, if you don't make that 15, you paying out of pocket to compete to go to the Olympia. That's crazy, right?
But the thing is, and I think this is the reason why they may have gotten rid of, because the whole reason, if I remember right, that it's called prejudging is because you had those 3. You had prejudging, then you had judging, then you had the night shift. This was back in the 70s, though. Yeah. This was back long, long time ago. Yeah. But how would that help with expenditures?
Well, because what they're saying is, if you don't make the top 15, then you have to pay. Like, you get the swag bag and the sweatsuit and all the shit. But as far as them paying for your expenses, you got to pay for that.
Yeah. But exactly. How does that help though with expenditures? Because you're still paying for your food. You're still paying for your supplements. You're still paying for travel. You're still paying for accommodations. You're paying for your suit. You're paying for your tanner. I mean, it's like, how would that? It just seems like it wouldn't make a dent in the expenditures.
Well, because then they're only paying for the top 15. Like the sweatsuits and stuff probably don't cost so much, but they're talking about hotels, flights, and things like that. And the food per diem and the stuff that you get, then that would come out of your pocket. It wouldn't come out of the Olympia pocket. You would have to pay out of your own pocket. So I'm like, what? I said, so I did all this work for, if I don't make the prejudging, to get to the final show. That's like my brother did Shark Tank. And I asked him because he made it, he had got a deal with Damon. Efforting is my brother. He got a deal with Damon. I said, why did you do that? You already got money. He says, I did it for the exposure. But what he didn't tell me was all these people audition in this empty warehouse. Like, I forgot how many people it was. It's a lot. And only so many make it to the show. So you're invited to do your pitch, but only so many make it to the show. And I didn't realize that. I was like, wow, that's crazy. So I think it's like 181 people and only 10 or 15 people make it to the show. But he only did it because of the free advertisement. He had money, but he did it because he knew that episode of that Shark Tank was going to play and play and play and play. So he just did a deal with Damon, and actually his product, grew by 30% after going on that show. So what I'm saying is, with this idea of sitting there saying, well, you're going to have to do two pre-judges, and like Jeremy said, 70s, because I wasn't paying attention to bodybuilding at all, because I was playing football, that you're telling these athletes, if you get to the show and you don't make the cut, then you got to come out of pocket, pay for your expenses. Or I don't know if they're making them pay for their, so I think at Nationals, when I did Nationals, if you won Nationals, then they pay for your flight, pay for your food per diem, excuse me, and something else.
Bless you.
And so, thank you. So if you want like Nationals in bodybuilding and at the NPC level, if you win, they pay for your flight, as long as you have your receipts, they pay for your food and something else. And of course, you're a pro. But that's the overall winner, or the winner of each class. So if you win your class, you get that back. If not, then you're just asked out. So even though they give out 2 pro cards, you have to win your class in order to get that back.
Yeah, I remember about I know a guy. His name is Sean. We used to be pretty cool. We talked a bit. He told me when he was, because he's from Ohio, he used to go to the Arnold Classic about every year. He talked to a wheelchair guy, and the wheelchair guy tell him that they had to pay their own way. And that thing is, that's wheelchair. These guys, they're the only ones who still get points to get, because there's not so many wheelchair competitors compared to the other divisions. And you see, he told them that, we have to pay our own way. This is the Arnold. They get invited to the Arnold. They get a stage on the Arnold, but still you have to pay your way. And you can tell me Arnold don't have to do don't charge a pay-per-view. You can kick up, $200,000 more for Men's Open, but he doesn't pay for the help, especially somebody who's disabled, who needs to get around, maybe needs assistance.
Well, and again, remember, as we talk about this, I think it was announced in Texas at the Phil Heath Classic where they were introducing the category of, which I thought was really cool. Like if you have like a fake leg or if abnormality about your body, they created this new category just for that. And that was, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago they had made that announcement. I don't even know if they still have it. But if you had a prosthetic leg or arm, they had a category just for that. So, and I remember that being announced at the Olympia, or not the Olympia, but the Phil Heath Classic in Texas. I don't know if they still have it, but it was for athletes who wanted to compete that had like a prosthetic or something like that to be on the level playing field as others. So I don't even know if they have that. But again, the reason why, we all have to understand the reason why these classes are generated is so that people can participate at all different levels, but understanding that the benefactor of all this stuff is the NPC and the IFBB.
Yeah, like I said, that's not fair, because you know what? If you can have wheelchair at the Arnold, you can't have women's bodybuilding or physique or figure. But I know, but they give more of a consideration to that division compared to others. Here we have a man, shout out to a man, KL, sticking away, says, LeBron's son is getting better. I hear Raheem. Also, he says, I almost did a live stream at the New York Pro, but the usher stopped me from filming.
They're no joke.
Yeah, here he goes. Also, from my man David J says, if Dwayne Johnson invested his money into WWB division and WPD, it should be a miracle. He would get a big deal if he got involved. Maybe that's a big thing. If people are interested in it. Also, this is from David J says, why did they usher stop you from filming for?
Because you're not supposed to.
Because you're not supposed to. They have signs up that says no filming. Like, I know Gary Udick is a big, what was that the last show I was at? It was a big show too. But they went up to him and they took the dude's phone out of his hand. They took it out of his hands, like, no filming. It says it. It says it before you go in the door. No filming. If we catch you filming, we'll either take your phone or kick you out. one to two. But they
Yeah.
already got your money, so he's gonna kick you out. You don't get a refund because you've seen the rules before you walk in the door. It was a Gary Udick show actually, so
Yeah.
these guys are not stupid. And again, that's different than Olympia because Olympia and the Arnold are big, giant shows. Gary shows are big, but you can see everybody. You can't see everybody at the Olympia. You damn sure can't see everybody at the Arnold, because it's the magnitude of people is tenfold at those shows compared to like a Gary Udick's North America, which is a lot of people, but they have enough eyes and snipers watching the crowd because it's one level, one room. They can see everybody. There's somebody holding up a camera, they go up to you right away and say, put that camera down, or give us your phone and you can get it back after the show, or you can get out of the show. It's pretty simple.
But even then, even today, it gets back to the whole technology issue. You've got mainline top dollar comedians who are packing out arenas who are not having that problem because of companies like Yonder.
Yeah,
who are doing this, but they're not exploring those options. They're just walking around doing it by hand. It's like that's what they do at these comedian shows. Everybody right at the door, you put your cell phone in one of these bags, and we hang it up for you, and we keep it there.
And I told somebody this, Jimmy. I mean, when's the last time you've been to a sporting event where you had to pay cash?
Right. Right.
Udick show, Jack the Tone show, you got to pay cash. They don't take credit cards. They don't. They don't. You got to pay cash. They don't want. I remember at the Omaha one year, and Jack was livid. I remember he was like, "That fucking ATM machine better be filled up with cash because I'm losing money." And I'm like, "Why not use a credit card?" Because credit cards keep receipts and keep tabs on things. So I felt this little shady. I was talking to a girl about this yesterday because she's like, it's weird that you guys don't take Apple Pay or something at your front door for Sunday Funday. I'm like, well, it's $7. So I'm losing money by doing that. I said, but there's another bar in town that is complete opposite. You can't buy a drink. You can't buy anything with a credit card. You have to pay cash, which I found very shady. So when we're saying that, it was like, there's a little shadiness to like, these individuals who saying you can't pay with a credit card to get in, you got to pay cash. Now you make you do it online, but when you get to the door, if you don't have cash in hand, you can't get into the show.
Yeah, because when I went to Savannah, I paid my tickets online. And then, also there's this guy, he drives around my neighborhood now. He's the slushy man. He has a little truck. He will sell cash out. You don't have cash on you. I bought a slushy and chips, but the problem was it was so bright outside, I couldn't really see my phone, so I had a few dollars. I don't even carry much. The only time I carry money when I do laundry. And even now, you have laundry mats that take ATMs now because that's the way it goes. No one's carrying. Right now, they're trying to push a bill to get real pennies. People don't carry cash like that. Everything's based on the credit.
They're not making pennies anymore.
Here we got a comment from Dave Jason, or maybe Dwayne Johnson, ex-wife Danny Garcia, if she invested her millions of dollars into his bodybuilding and women's physique divisions, considering she competed as a WPD herself when she helped, like good point, like Sarah, where at the Texas Pro, she's gonna put up $15,000 of her own money. She can write it off in taxes. You can also write off as a charity. There's ways to do it. I know if Danny, if anything, if Jake is open to a partner, that's someone right there. You don't have to. You may not deal with Dwayne directly, but you can deal with Danny. She's bitching your show.
But here's the thing: Danny and Dwayne are business people, so they're gonna sit here and says, "How is this benefiting us?" That's what they're gonna say. We understand that you guys want somebody to support the sport, but how is that benefiting us? What do we get out of doing that?
You have to demonstrate beyond a reasonable doubt a return on investment.
Exactly.
You have to.
Thank you, Jeremy.
And if you can't do that, then they're going to probably steer clear of it. Exactly. So and this was an idea. It's like if you want to once and for all, no question, no argument, find out the popularity of these individual divisions, stop doing what they're doing, and sell one ticket for the entire night. Have a separate ticket for each division. Have a separate ticket for bodybuilding, separate ticket for women's physique, separate ticket for wellness, separate ticket for bikini. You want to settle the argument, that's how you do it. And you find out officially who's popular and who's not.
And the funny thing that you say that, Jeremy, is Chris Mims, who does the Legions Fest, has had that ideology at one point in time where he said, and it went to it was the benefit of the athlete. So if you went online and bought a ticket, you would click who you're going to see. So if it was, I think Justin Compton competed when I did, it was Akeem Williams and all these guys, you would be like, who am I going to see? Click. So if you clicked on like their name, they got like a percentage of that ticket sale. So then like Jeremy's saying, like I was telling Tina, I said, as we have had this discussion on George's cast so many times, when I was looking in the audience and the crowd started to dwindle, when bikini was done and wellness was done, the crowd got scarce. Let's just say that. And so I'm like, so it wasn't men's bodybuilding. I know it's an amateur show and it's a natural show, and it wasn't classic physique. The categories that most of the people that I seen yesterday in the crowd was there for was wellness, bikini, and figure. And then once they were done, because they were the beginning of the show, the crowd got very scarce. So it has to come to fruition with the same idea of these pro shows and Jeremy, that's a great idea to sit here and say, okay, for once and for all, because I think one of the bodybuilders said at the Olympia, when you guys bring in more people than we do, then you make more money than we do. Well, how do we really know? How do we really know? Again, I bring up the example when I was doing the Chicago Pro 5 or 6 years ago, and by the time we got on stage, since we were the priority, there were 20 people in the audience. That's it. All the food was gone, and there were 20 people in the audience at Tim Gardner's show in Chicago. Tinsley, Chicago, Illinois. There were 20, maybe 30 people in the audience. Everybody else is gone. So how do we really know? And like Jeremy says, start putting, are you here for classic physique? Are you here for women's physique? Are you here for women's bodybuilding? Are you here for, 212? And then you will really, really, really know. But that sounds like a little too much work for them, and I don't think they want to do that.
Yeah, that is too much work because you gotta the tickets you gotta make for each division, or you can do like something like have like when you set up online, you say, hey, this is my tickets for women's bodybuilding, women's physique, finals and pre-judging, and that's it. And the thing is, once those are over, you have to get up and go.
Well, but George, they do that at the Chicago
right, exactly.
Pro, at the Chicago Pro, at the Tampa Pro, the shows I compete in, and they do it for so once the pros are done, the NPC show is next. So if you have bought a ticket for the IFBB show, you got to get up and leave, and the NPC fans come in next. So they already do that. So how is that complicated when you already do that? So the IFBB show starts first because we're priority. Then the amateurs come in, and the place is jam-packed clearly because there's more amateur fans than pro fans, and it's a completely different ticket. Or you can buy a package for both, because some people buy a package for both because they want to see both. But most of the time at Tim Gardner shows that I've competed in, there's an IFBB show, even at the Legion Fest. You got to get up and go. There's the IFBB show, and then there's the NPC show. And you got to buy tickets for either one or both.
And the reason I bring up both divisions is because back in the day, when I was able to get to the Arnold, ironically enough, you had to buy separate tickets.
Yep.
You had to buy separate tickets per division. There was no ticket that was covered every single night. I remember that distinctly. For at least the Arnold Amateur, I'm not sure about can't remember about the pro, but for the amateur, you had to buy a separate ticket per division. You didn't. And that's why I say, if you want to completely solve the argument, people are only going to pay for what they want to see.
Yep.
And that would unequivocally show who's popular and who's not. Mm-hmm. And I'm suspecting that's why people don't want that to happen, because maybe divisions that they don't want to be unpopular will show as being unpopular.
You got that.
And that's why I suspected that's why they do it, is because they don't really want to know.
100%, 110% correct.
Yeah, and go back to the situation with Chris Mims. Is this year's Legion's festival is going to be this weekend, and they had dropped both women's physique and figure from the show. I interviewed the last champion for women's physique, that was Yvonne Pendleton. My big brother was there. He competed there. Shout out to him. And I remember he was there. We were talking about this, how there was Alex, and who was it that was there that
Alex and God, what's the other one's name? But the Wings of Strength was there, and I walked up to him. I personally walked up to him and says, "You guys need to be winning women's bodybuilding here." And they kind of looked at us, and they said, and they said something about money, and I was like, for one, it's like Alex and God, what's the other one's name? But anyway, they were there, and they're the powers that be for Jake, and I'm like, you really need to be in women's bodybuilding here because it will be super dope and super cool. And I thought they were there scouting, but again, clearly didn't help. And again, what did Chris Mim say? When I get a sponsor to want to put 20 grand up for women's bodybuilding, I'll bring it to the show. And clearly something must have happened with women's physique too, where it was a very competitive class and they had some really good women, but again, maybe he didn't have the sponsorship for women's physique, so they got rid of that too, which I just don't understand. How do you call yourself the Legion? And it was the venue was great, the expo was pretty good, and all this other stuff. But how do you just get rid of certain things? How do you know that people don't want to see certain things? And it's just frustrating because you can never really get a really good definitive answer. And I wouldn't say disappointed, but I was kind of bummed that, you see Alex in, what's the other guy? I can't remember her name right now. And Alex is, the higher up, I think she's underneath Jake. They're at the show, dolled up there, sitting VIP, and you're sitting there saying, well, they have to be here for a reason. Maybe they scouting, but clearly nothing happened. Nothing became of it. So
Alex is the one with the blonde hair and the big old booty.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, I actually saw her when she was at Savannah. I said, who's that?
And she's awesome. Like, she's always taking care of me and my family. I have nothing ill to ever say about the Wings of Strength family. They've always taken care of Tina. They've always taken care of me. Even when I had went to the Atlanta Pro and was injured still, and she was like, you need to be sitting up front. But I couldn't sit up front because of the loudness from my concussion. So I had to have earphones on. But they took care of me at the World Championship and got me in the front row with my injury and stuff like that because I hadn't really told anybody. And then I told them. So Wings of Strength have always been good, but I don't know if the reason why they're not doing it or taking a step forward is because of the budget that they have to have for the Olympia, which is a big budget. It was a very big budget. So, and I think that's why it's taken away from the Rising Phoenix as well. But there's multiple reasons, things happen, especially with the Rising Phoenix. There were girls not showing up that they're paying for, girls weren't coming. Some of the girls weren't coming in shape, and they were shelling out a lot of money for, remember it was started off with the car and the 50,000, then there was best poser, most muscular, best video. So if you were a girl who was competing in that show, I would say 50% of them was walking away with something. Then you had the photo shoots, you had the hair and the makeup, and the suits they were giving girls for the photo shoot. So it was, and I actually told my wife Tina I was jealous at one point in time because they were spoiled. They were getting spoiled. And it was great. And I thought it was great that they had. It was like a women's symposium just because it was all women. It was like this, it was this empowerment for women. And so to cut that off kind of was a bummer. Even as a husband of an IFBB pro women's bodybuilder, because it was like they just took so good care of them, and it was just so fun to watch them have their own time to shine, and for that now to be gone kind of sucks, in my opinion.
Well, we all know that Jake is trying to uplift. He wants to compete with the Arnold Classic. That's understandable, but still, it kind of hurts, especially as a fan of the sport. We have a man, David J. He says this. He says, "I know Sarah Vickers and her husband are millionaires and no top people in the business, but there's only so much she can do to help the women. She could have offered $1 million at least. Nah, that's not too much. She has a limit. She even has a cap too. But she just put up her gym. Just put up a new statue or something in her gym. And some of the stuff she writes off. Like one thing, she every year she flies that jet. She don't own a jet. She rents it. That's what I was told. That's not her jet.
Yep.
She rents it.
Yeah.
Here we got something.
I gotta head out, guys. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna get going. Good discussion, guys. Hope to see you again.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. That was our man Jeremy, aka the art film, aka Fan Physique fan number one. Also, he's our Merlin. He's a man of knowledge and wisdom. I saw this when I was looking, searching, and I go to my man, shout out to my man Big Keith, who put me on this channel. That is Generation Iron, and
Yes.
they posted this, and it's something that I think, ooh, it's a little bit of there's some shit going on right here. I don't know. It's a situation between Bob Chicarello, or I'll call him Bobby Chick, and also one of Arnold's right hand men, I believe. Uh, there's no longer love lost between Bobby Chicarello and Brian Powers. The two recently engaged in an intense back and forth on social media, link in bio for exchange. Ooh, it says Bob Chicarello clashes with Arnold Classic director in fiery feud. Here you go. It says like you can't claim to be impartial voice of bodybuilding while using your platform to tear down the people you paid to present and support on stage. It's clear conflict of interest and sends the wrong message about professionalism in our sport, posted Brian Williams. And also, this is from, yeah, that's rich coming from you. You and the word professionalism is an oxymoron like jumbo shrimp, Chigarello responded. Ooh, and like I said, this is, I mean, Bob, he gets some feuds. He's right now he's in a feud with
Milos.
Nick Walker, Milos. Like Milos says, you that shit. Who the fuck told you? I remember I saw that. That's crazy.
Yeah, he's like, who the fuck are you? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's also got claims that he created Wins Physique, but some people say that's that's now here and there.
Well,
But
I mean, I don't. Bob never turned pro, did he? I don't think he ever turned.
no.
It's like you get some of these people like Bob, who's been around, and MCs and stuff like that, and knows people and like people like Dave Palumbo as well, who are very, another guy who had unbelievable potential but never turned pro. Who knows and has a shit ton of knowledge for this. Knows he was my old coach back in the day. Dave was who have a shit ton of knowledge, but again, these guys start kicking up shit, and people like, who are you? Like, clearly Bob is the voice of, the Olympia and was the voice of the, because remember he was talking shit that said that, I think he said that Nick wasn't going to win the Pittsburgh Pro, and he didn't win, but, it stirred up a bunch of shit because if you're the MC of the show, you kind of have to sit back sometime and just let shit play out, and not have opinion one way or another. So you got to pick and choose your battles, and clearly Bob's and I like Bob. We always speak when I see him, but people think he's a little over opinionated and and says too much at times. So I'm sure that's where that came from.
Yeah, sometimes you got to pick words wisely, sir.
Yeah,
Especially a lot of y'all bodybuilders, y'all very a bit overly sensitive at sometimes. So
yeah.
but you know what, folks, this is a subject that I'm just a small YouTuber, and if you follow me, my channel is growing. I am almost at 3,000 subscribers, and also I recently saw that my channel has been on for 7 years, and I actually started. I had a channel before then, but the situation happened, and then it was blocked, yada yada yada. And then I created this because at the time I said again, I was taking care of my mom. And you know what? I enjoy doing this content, and I know I reached out to you ladies. I got a couple of interviews coming up this week. Just finished one yesterday, and I enjoy having people like my man Big Key come here. I was hoping to have some more people, but I know life is busy, things happen. I understand. But again, I'm just a small voice. But my feeling is
Hey,
this.
I am not trying to hear that shit. I am not trying to hear life is busy. This shirt I have on. I just been up all morning at my daughter's softball tournament in Blue Springs. Yesterday we had a tournament. The day before that I had I was best man in a wedding. I had a bodybuilding show. So don't give me that shit. I have a lot of shit going on in my life, and this is not about me. I am a male bodybuilder who don't have to sit here and do this shit. So quit giving them a scapegoat saying they're busy. Bullshit. I'm just as busy. I coach softball. I'm a competitive bodybuilder right now. I run a business. I train people. I coach softball. So you have time. Everybody has time. It's is it important enough for you to have a voice for what you want to happen or not at the end of the day? So I'm gonna keep it 100 for you, George. I ain't trying to hear that shit.
Well, I appreciate that, brother, because you know what? Sometimes I give you ladies too much of allowance. I do. But it goes back to also, I would say this. Some of y'all, I appreciate when you make comments on your posts, but you don't have testicles, but at least have the testicle fortitude to step up. I get tired of you, as my man, the old school wrestler, the redneck Captain Dick Murdoch. I get tired of you yellow belly, egg sucking dogs. But like I said again, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But the thing is, I saw this post says like, don't be everybody's cup of tea, be gasoline and burn the whole shit down. So what I did was I did this. I posted this on my IG. I'm on my YouTube. I don't have my IG. I have my stories, but I did this. And this is where sometimes I gotta let people know. Sometimes I gotta let people feel me, because you know what? I'm a Scorpio. I have personalities about myself. So we're gonna play this real quick. It's gonna. Wait a minute. Give me, like say that guy.
Brick, black, brick. This is my life, man. Do you know how hard I worked to get here? I built this shit. Brick, black, brick.
That's why sometimes I feel. Because you know what?
You should.
Because I don't do the shit. I don't have to do this shit. And I say that's why I got my man to hate it. But you see me. This is I'm telling you, folks, I'm like this. I built this shit. Me, brick by brick. I don't care what other women say or what you think. This is your sport. You should fight for it. Why should I fight for it? Why should I care? Because I have a heart. I have a heart. But the fact is, my heart can only go so far. But you're not willing to put yourself out there. I understand. No, I don't understand. I get your point. I'm not saying understand. I get your point. But again, sometimes you have to have the courage. I understand. Again, I keep saying that it's where I got to break myself habit of saying. But I get your point and your feeling of it. But if this is your sport, and if you feel like, don't worry about Arnold. F Arnold. Forget Arnold. Let's move on for him. Let's take a show like the Rising Phoenix. Let's get people put money behind it. Let people reach out to Jake. Hey, Jake, how about we partner up a little bit, help you out a little bit with the Rising Phoenix? Or, hey, let's help out with Linda. Let's, Alina, she has 2 shows. She has Alina Classic. She also has the Romanian Muscle Fest.
Well, my question is, George, not to cut you off, is how many of these women have reached out to Jake, Linda, Alina, Alex, and says, what do we need to do to make our sport, our class more relevant? What do we have to do as athletes? What are you willing to help us with to make our class more relevant? The Wings of Strength have done their job. Bodybuilding had gone away. They brought it back. They pumped life into it. And I know life has taken this, a little life has gone out of it, but they have pumped life into it. And the reason why in my humble opinion, that they have taken a step back because of what we're talking about right now. Because there's been no initiative for women bodybuilders or women's physique competitors. And I'm not talking about your IG channel. I'm not talking about your Facebook. I'm talking about you guys as a consensus, a whole group of women getting together and says, how do we become more relevant as a whole? Like what Chelsea and the girl did in New York. That was super cool, but you're not seeing that. And so until you see that, it's going to die off and ride into the sunset because, again, Jake, Alina, Alex, the whole group of Wings Train people have done everything they possibly can do to pump life back into your sport. But again, at the exact same time, it says, what have you done for us lately? Mm-hmm. And the same thing goes for your channel. You have been on here. You have 3,000 subscribers. I hardly ever see any female. And it's not about time. Again, I woke up my day started at 7 o'clock this morning. I went to the gym. I did legs. I had to come home and get dressed for softball. Went to softball. We went to lunch. I'm on your channel. Yesterday had softball. Softball, I had a wedding. Wedding, I had to run my business. So don't sit here and tell me that you're too busy. I got clients too, getting ready. Had a client to show Saturday morning. I had to be up at 7 a.m., run to the casino, look at my client, come back, be a best man at a wedding, go to the reception, go back to the night show to support my client. Today, play another softball game, go to the gym before that. So don't sit here and give me your bullshit excuses about how busy you are, because we're all busy. But again, this ain't about me. I'm on here supporting my boy George. I'm on here supporting my wife because she's a competitor as well. I said, but at the end of the day, this is about you guys. This ain't about us. I ain't no fucking schmo. I'm a guy who's an active IFBB pro. No, you're not. You are absolutely not. You're a supporter of the sport. And if that's what they think, I would cancel it. I would turn this fucking channel off and never be on it again if that's not what they think. Because from day one I met you, George, you have never been that dude. You have been nothing but respectful to these women. You have nothing but stuck up for these women. You have nothing but had unbelievable ideas and people on the channel to give them ideas on this show. And if they can't get it, they don't deserve you, in my opinion. Because this sport needs more people like you for them. And they don't understand that, which I think is bullshit. And I'm just going to call it like I see it. You don't like it? You can DM me. You can message me, Big K Williams, and say whatever the fuck you want. But I've been on this channel multiple times before coaching basketball, training, working, and doing all this other stuff to support you guys' asses. So if you don't have the courage to come on this show and just say hi, appreciate you having a show for us, George. Appreciate you supporting us and all this other stuff. You don't deserve a dude like him, in my opinion.
And this man here, this is my brother. He was laying in a hospital. I told him, don't you dare do that shit. Take care of yourself. His wife and he was sitting there. They took the time. And I'll say it again to you, bunch of, my man, this is why I got my Doc Holiday. I got my doctor say, I'm your Huckleberry. I'm your Huckleberry. The days you do, days you don't. I feel like I need the word doc. Shout out to Val Kilmer, one of the best actors in the world. And he really, Doc Holiday, that was a bad motherfucker. I mean, he smoked his cigarette. He said, draw, Johnny. Say, you ain't no Daisy. But you know what? You ladies, I do. I said again, I'm not saying I understand. I'm going to break myself of that. But I get your feeling of it. But again, this is about you. You can't be couched. You talk to women, you have to speak up for yourself. You can't expect us, I know it does take us guys to say something. We do have to say something because, basically the world is, unless you're white, the world is stacked up for the men more than for the women. But y'all the ones make up the majority of the sport.
A lot.
And some of y'all do a lot of riding to the limit where it doesn't affect you. You don't want to do anything about it. You go, hey, I know I say it. Like I said again, there are guys who are coaches who coach women, who have training partners as women, who like what Lee said, he was married to a female bodybuilder, and he saw how she was going through. These people, like the other guys who have their opinion, say, hey, well, what about Arnold's pockets? So let's not worry about Arnold's pockets. Let's find people who want to put money in their pockets. Let's move on from him. Stop talking about him. Don't make him the issue. That's what he feels like. He wants you to sit and talk about him.
Don't make him relevant.
Don't make him important. He's not. Anybody who messed with while he's married to his wife, messed with his maid, but and stuff I've heard, that's not Tina's favorite person either.
Hey, you know what my wife says? Fuck Arnold. That's what she said.
I think that's what he wants, but not that type of fucking go. We got here from a man KL, and I know his side says stop seeking their validation. I'm not seeking their validation. This is not me seeking. It's me doing what I like to do. This is my purpose. Like I said, I don't have. He has beautiful babies. He has a beautiful wife. I don't have that. I got me. The one person I did have, it's gonna be 6 years since she left me. She was the one while I was taking care of her. This was something I was doing because what, it was tough. I was just talking to my friend Bev. Bev, she can't make it because her father passed away. She's helping her mom. Said, I don't think you can't make it. Take care of your mom. That's important. Anytime you want to come on, let me know. You're always open. I don't do this because of validation, Kay. I do it because this is something I want to do. This is a purpose. It's a different thing, validation and a purpose. If I get validation, I appreciate it. I don't look for it, but it comes, it comes. He says, should I put my man on the spot? He says, they don't care. Well, they don't care, I said, but then there's those ones who do care. like Donna Jones who talked yesterday. She's a mother, got a grandbaby. She wants to compete. She wants to go to Olympia. That's why I do this, because give them a voice. I got an interview on Wednesday. I thought it was gonna be Tuesday, but
Hey,
my
the
mind.
question I have to ask him is, why do you do it?
Yes.
Why do you do
Right.
it? I want to know the answer before I leave this show. Why do you do it then, KO? Why do you do it?
Yeah, yeah. He goes. He says. He says this. He says. He says this. He says. Let them suffer. Well, that's the thing. You don't want anybody to suffer. That's not right. Also, he says. Keith, they don't care, and not all, but a lot of them doesn't care. Well, he
You're
says
right.
they sit down.
You're
Yeah,
right.
that's true. But there's still those who do. Also, you can make a song. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Yeah, But I'm just keep saying it, and it says. Yes, you are. Yeah, what it says it's validation. Well, not so much, but if I get it, I appreciate it, brother. You know me, but you don't know me well enough. And he has
Here's the
says,
thing. I told my 10-year-old we lost today 4-2 and had some errors in softball. We ended up coming in third place. And I looked at my girls and said, here's the thing. At the end of the day, there's a thing called constructive criticism. When I'm yelling at you, it's not because I'm being an asshole. It's called constructive criticism to make you better. What these women need to do is come on here with their ideas and their criticism on how they feel, like we feel the sport can be better for them and for a whole. And we're not just talking about women's bodybuilding. We're talking about these shows are now taking away women's physique, women's figure, women's bodybuilding. Three of the cornerstones, well, especially women's figure and women's bodybuilding, two of the cornerstones of the IFBB not being in a lot of shows. So the validation is validating yourself for why you guys are relevant and should be significant in these shows. That's what this is about.
mm-hmm. There you go. He says, I make videos. Well, brother, you're talking to these women, you're hearing their stories. You're not making videos, you're putting out information people want to know. That's it.
Knowledge is power.
Because, like I say, if you don't want to do it, you can stop doing it. You can talk about, because he does talk about other stuff. He talk about guys who, you talk to guys who do comic books. You talk to women who do sessions. You don't have to talk to female bodybuilders. You can talk to them exclusively, but you talk to them because you have a reason to talk to them. Maybe because you want to hear story, you want to learn something about them, get knowledge from them. Because he's more of a fan of the women muscle now about sport. But he did take a time out. One thing, what happened was with New York, he's trying to get to New York Pro, but he got the wrong bus, but he still was able to get there. You could have watched it home on pay-per-view, but you wanted to go there. You go to shows like the OCB show, and he does live stream those shows because it's not a bigger organization like the
No.
So, but hey, that's you. You do it because you want to do it. You like to do it like I do. I enjoy doing it. If validation come, I appreciate validation. I'm not going to check away from it if it's given to me. He says, I just talked to some. Well, you talk to just as many as I do about, not just as much. Also says, then what is it then? Then, like I told you, I do because I want to do it. Because you know what? This was something that helped me when I was dealing with my mom. This was something. I was a fan of bodybuilding for a long time. Not just the women, but also the guys. But as I got older and my teenage mind changed, the women kind of draw me in a little more.
Well, here's the thing, KO, and I'm gonna break this down for you. You can comment on what you want. When I first met George, I didn't know any, and neither did my wife. Just like when I got into this sport 18 years ago, I had no idea about bodybuilding whatsoever. I was a football and track guy. And I decided to do this, but still didn't have the knowledge education. When I met George and watched one of his first videos, it was talking about a plethora of women getting ready for the Omaha show and their stories and what they were going through, and one that just had a baby and changed the diaper, and it was just talking about all these people, just like you're doing now. So it became enlightening to me as a men's open bodybuilder about what was going on in the world of women's bodybuilding that was just coming back, because the Wings of Strength had just brought it back. And I think Omaha was one of the first shows that they had brought back when Jake decided to do this. So the plethora of knowledge that George has enlightened me to even get deeper in it, in the sport. One, because my wife's a pro IFBB pro now, but two, because of the plethora of knowledge that he has on each individual that he takes interest in the sport is very educational also to me and people like you as well, because there had to be a reason at some point in time that you wanted to do this. And so what I'm saying It's not about seeking validation for these women. I just want to get a better understanding of how they are not trying to empower one another to invoke their powers on the powers to be to keep their sport relevant, because it seems like it's dissipating in front of our face since it came back to the Omaha Pro. Was that 5-6 years ago? 7. Well, Tina's been a pro for 8 years. That's when she first did her 8 years now. She's been a pro. So 8 years ago when they first brought it back, of why we're starting to see it dissipate in front of our face. So that and George has brought a lot of that to the forefront when it was at its high, and now as it's coming down to its low, to figure out how these women can make more money, how they can empower themselves, how they can come together as a unit to make it even better. So,
yeah, here he has a comment. He says, "I'm not, seeing that I never did seek validation, but you do say you are the emperor of women's bodybuilding." That thing is, a leader. There's a difference between a leader and a boss. A leader leads people by example. Just doing this good works, not asking no more than he can ask from himself. I took that name because I wanted something different. I could call myself the king. I could call myself the prince. But I say, you know what? Emperor is more interesting. You remember Napoleon became emperor of France. He could call himself the king of France, but he chose the emperor of France. It's a very old and recognizable title. But that's why I do it. He says again, because he's always Donald Thomas. He says, but they are not listening. Well, I'm not expecting anybody to listen. And he says, read it right, bro. Like I said, I'm trying to read as much as I can. But the thing is, this is not so much about me. It's about recognizing what these ladies who are in the sport, the opportunities that are there for them, they got to fight for, like anything. This is why I said again, as I often say, my other guy says, if you get something, never do it for free. And with someone like Eunice, who we never met in person, we talked, interviewed, she's been on a live stream. When she takes the time off to do this for me, go to meet someone like Andrea Shaw. Andrea, she takes the time for somebody who don't even know and tells me, George, you are the best. Your support, moves, the world to me, means the world to me. So thank you, and seeing you soon. Hugs and love. That's really special. I mean, you really have to appreciate that. She did not have to do that. She didn't know me from Adam, but she's seen my stuff. Maybe someday I get an interview with her, because I know Keith was around her. I'm not gonna let that go.
That's my
I'm gonna let that go. I'm gonna let that go. I'm not gonna let that go. I promise my brother I'll let it go.
My wife's too sexy for me to think about anybody else.
Yeah. Got a wife, but anyway, the thing is, people who look for validation often fail looking for it. When it comes to you, when you're not looking for it, it's more precious. Like like the other day, I had a lady, she did a flex. I don't ask the ladies to do flexes because you know what? They do enough of it while they're training. They have to practice flexing, posing like that. But if they do it because they want to do it, that's more appreciated, because they really want to show something. They want to show themselves to share it out with the world. I know David, he asked for flexes. I know other guys ask him. I don't. I say, okay, if you're here, we're talking, have a conversation. If you flex, like another time when Maria, she was flexing doing one of our lives. And she's a nice lady. She's doing good. I hope maybe one day I get a chance. And
did you see her last IG with her little fishnet deal on?
But she's moving on. I don't know if she's gonna compete next year or not, but she's doing stuff that she's out there. She did a thing for the new COVID booster vaccine, commercial. I might think about getting one. I need to talk to my doctor about it. But that thing is, people, it's out there. You just got to be able to work for it and willing to work for it. Go to Hollywood and talk to people. Work here, work there. Like people like Andrea or Chelsea. Get yourself some people that can, hey, you know what? You have a look to you. Like you saw the video with her and Manny Machado walk around New York. Talk to people out there. There's people out there that you don't have to be smokes. And like there's some meaning to guys, yes, I know they want to be undercover because of the fact of what people are saying about them because they want to shame them. But don't be ashamed of who you are. Like best way to say it, bring it back to like this: if people don't like you, fuck them. do what you do. This is from my man KL. We're gonna it says when you get Andre on your show, then I will shut the fuck up. Yeah, well you can now. So you're not on here. You sitting in the teach seats talking. But but again, folks, let's not worry about people like Arnold or any other people. Ladies, if you have a way to maybe push your division, if you can reach out to the people and stop, turning your nose up to guys that approach you. Yes, there's some guys that can be weird. That's true. There are those, but the ones that who are genuinely interested in seeing your division advance, to see it grow. We're not saying that Andrea should get as much as Samson, but at least a little more than the guy who's fifth place. I mean, at least enough where okay, she can make more moves, she can do some more stuff. That money helps. Money makes the world goes round. It's not, yeah, like just giving just enough in the city. Money.
And again, like I said, George, it'd be interesting for you to ask one of your girls, especially a pro girl, what their expenditures are. Like we talked to your girl who did the Master Olympia a few years ago, who spent 30 racks, on getting to the show. And that's what people don't understand, that, all the things that I mentioned earlier add up, and so when you're giving a woman $5,000 or $2,000 for a show, it's like, what are you doing? What am I? I'd be like, what am I doing this for? I'm having to train harder. I'm having to use certain supplements. I'm having to work 20 times harder than a guy to not even make, 20% of what they make. So again, these are valid questions and answers that they need to have answered by somebody, because it just doesn't make sense. And again, my whole thing is, I don't want, something like my wife can afford it. We can afford it. We're not talking about her and expenditures and this and another. We can afford it. We do well enough but there's a lot of girls in this sport who are trying to survive and want to compete, but can't compete because they don't have the support system, or because the money's just not relevant. It's not worth, the health and all the other shit you got to go through to compete as a woman. And I watch what my wife has to go through and how she has to train and still work our business and still take care of our kids and still go do through the same things I did. We were at the gym together working out. Then we got to get home and take our daughter to softball. I got to coach. Then we finally get to come back home and I'm on this TV show when I should be taking a nap. But because I want to support my brother, that's why I'm here. I laid there. I'm like, oh, do I really want to talk about this? I'm like, I got to be on the show to support my brother. So, other people, I don't know. KO may be working. Raheem may be working. I don't know. I don't work a regular job. So I have the luxury of not having to worry about that shit. So again, at the end of the day, you guys have to understand it's not about validation. It's about showing love to our brother, showing love to these competitors. And if they don't get that, I don't understand. Exact same thing that you're doing, KO. You do the exact same thing. You're trying to get knowledge and understanding. I've listened to your interviews and sometimes I'm like, what? The questions that you ask, but you're trying. Knowledge is power. And all the trainers I work with over the years and all the things I've done with my clients, there's always, the guy who stays in the box is going to stay that box. It's the guy who kicks out the box upside and downside to go ask the questions and seek what they need to seek to get a better understanding is always going to be the smartest guy in the room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's about just understanding what's involved in it. And if you really put your whole heart into it, you don't need a validation. If it comes to you, that's great. It's appreciative. I have ladies who really like. Was it just this last week? A lady, she was supposed to compete at a show in Shreveport, and she couldn't make it because she was sick. And I, one thing I did was maybe it was a month before I sent her my care package. He said he never got it before. And I sent him and she said, George, I'm sending you something. I said, okay. She sent me these lovely pictures. It was some like these her little cupcake pictures she does, like working out and wearing an outfit. And I appreciate that. Because you know what? I've had people send me stuff before, like, something for like Merry Christmas, Happy Birthday, something like that. Because I'm not looking for it. I'm not asking for it. But when it comes, it's appreciative. Like, I really appreciate when somebody do something for me. I like to say, it doesn't hurt to help. That's the thing.
And I guess what bugs me the most by what KO is like, quit seeking about. The only validation we need to seek is our Lord, Savior Jesus Christ. That's it. As long as you have a good heart, I'm sure you've been reading the story on the guy that we're helping who we just saved his house on our Facebook.
Yeah,
Homeless
yeah.
guy. We didn't have to do that. This guy's house is about to get condemned. You know, now his house is, I mean, we just went to his house today and he's peaceful. He's a musician. I mean, this dude didn't have water for a year. His electricity was turned off for 6 months. His gas was turned off for 6 months. To walk in to do that, it's no validation for me. My shit's always on. But to see a person suffer and go through that, we did a GoFundMe and raised $5,000 in 3 days. And you see the video, the lady was there who condemned the house. We ripped all the signs off the house. The house has carpet, water. This man, I looked at him, I asked him 2 questions. How does it feel to be able, because he used to come to my house and take baths because he didn't have water. I said, how does it feel to be able to take a shower or bath at your own house and take a shit in your own bathroom again? You know, have food in your refrigerator. You know, have actually somebody who actually gives it. And the reason why I'm saying this, KL, to you is because there's people out there like George. My wife, and this is a project for my wife, and I just jumped on board because I support my wife in what she does. And God puts it, and the Gibbs said something to us a long time ago, because that's his name. He used to let all these homeless people stay in, you know, and I won't be long with this. He let all these homeless people come stay at his house. He said, because you never know when Jesus is knocking at your door. And that's why he didn't turn people away. But now he's at a point in his life where I said, Gibb, you can't just let anybody come in and out of your house. We are now his protectors. We are now his power of attorney. We are now his payees for everything. And this dude is just happy. Has a refrigerator full of food. We go over and check on him every day. Sometimes, and this dude was just walking down the street at 1 o'clock in the morning when my wife just stopped, let him get in his car and drove him home because he was walking from the Dollar General store with food. And now he's a part of our life and our family. There's certain people in life like George and like Tina and like myself who just want to help people. And it's not for any validation. It's just God just drops people in your life at opportune times to help. So if that doesn't give you a clear understanding of who he is and who we are, I don't know what to tell you, bro. I'm just keeping it 100 with you.
Well, sometimes life has cynics, and God bless the cynics. That's all I can say.
Exactly.
You know? But we do appreciate him when he comes on and gives his thoughts. He's a good dude. You know, he can be a little bit, but I really appreciate him. One of these days, if I ever get a chance to go to New York, I don't know. I gotta care for New York. You know, we go up to New York, you gotta look down. You can't look them straight in the eye. You gotta, you know, it's just always happening. But that's the thing is, folks. You know, my big brother said he needs to go get his rest because he's been through hell and high water.
Yes.
And you know, you can go
Happy
ahead and
Memorial Day to all the vets and all the people who took care of our country and protecting our country, by the way.
Yes, happy Memorial Day to all the badasses. I have 2 in my family, my niece and my niece Brian, my nephew Brian, we call him Squeaky, my niece Marlena, we call her Granny, they served. You know, shout out to, I don't say thank you for your service because you're not providing the service. I say I appreciate the sacrifice you have made for this country as a citizen. So that's why I say to y'all, we have this Memorial Day. Remember the ones who have passed, and Veterans Day for the ones who are still here. So let's remember that. So it's not just about, you know, it's not just about, dollar stuff like that. But again, folks, to you ladies out there, this is about you. Arnold's not the issue. He's a businessman. He's making his money. He's doing what he needs to do. You know, he's just a front man. There's someone behind him. So whoever who's putting that money behind him, they could do the same. They could choose to, but they choose not to. You know, they choose not to do what they feel like. I would say not make it an equal playing ground, but at least level it a little bit. So when if someone like Chelsea Dion, she goes to New York Pro and she gets like maybe $20,000. That's enough that takes care of her expenses and maybe a little money in her pocket. That's one thing. A lot of ladies. That's why some of the ladies have to do sessions or the Beat the Meat websites afterwards show because it's a way to make money. Because some ladies tell me they'll do it because for the money. They do it because they love the sport. They love competing. They love being on the stage. You know, there are amazing ladies who I've talked to, and they told me that. But still, I said again, y'all deserve a little more. But like again, I can't help it. It's the hater in me. Sometimes I hate that I can't hate no more. And I don't hate y'all ladies. I just hate how y'all treat me. Do it better. Do better for yourself. Not just for you, but yourself. Not just for out there, but for yourself too. You need to do better. And again, don't make Arnold too much of the issue. Before I head out, I want to say a shout out to Rachel Daniels, who won the the Ultimate Classic. Sometimes I'll post stuff and she tagged me, and maybe someday in the future I might do an interview. Maybe she ever interested in. some of the ladies, I sent them their pitch because, you know, they already posted pictures for the show. Because this, I would say, I was surprised because usually a show like that, it wasn't a big show. You know, I understand something like New York Pro or maybe some other shows, but, and you know, I was surprised to put the pictures out in NPC News Online. Since some ladies, we appreciate that because you know what? You have to pay for pictures. Some still pay for the pictures and videos, but some can't afford it. Because especially some of like, ladies like who have kids and family. You know what? It's saving a few bucks if they can get them their pictures right away. But I always do this, like I said again, I do it because this is my passion. And when you have something you love and a passion, the rewards come into it later. I don't seek it for it now, but when I get it later, I will appreciate it. So again, folks, shout out to the amazing people that serve our country and those who have passed. Let's give a memorial to them and also a little silent prayer for those. All right, thank you, folks. Appreciate my big brother, Mr. Big Keith Win, for coming through here. And he take his nap, busy man. You know, I hope he's doing all right. Shout out to my man Jeremy coming through. Also, shout out to guest who was here, Raheem Hamilton, Damon J, my man KL the Wanderer, all y'all who are here making comments. I appreciate all the ones who watch this. I appreciate y'all watching. You know, and again, to y'all who have an issue, hey, again, I appreciate the comments. But have the same courage you have in the comment section to come in here. You know, you talk about the guys who talk just about your DMs, but you know, you can't always seem like them too. But again, hey, I'm just a poor broke snow with two bad knees like Stone Cold Austin and a pacemaker. You know, I have a small channel and that's all I have. So I thank y'all. So folks, enjoy the rest of your holiday. You gotta go back to work on Tuesday. Oh shit, here we go again. Yeah, I don't miss those days anymore. I don't have a job. I don't have a job, Tommy. So I appreciate y'all. Thank you to my guests and my brothers who are here supporting me, and all you ladies who support my content and me talking about y'all. So this is Mail Away Judge Page, aka the Emperor of Female Bodybuilding Talk. Don't like, subscribe. I am out. Enjoy the rest of Memorial Day, and God bless you all, service people.